thank you very much. I think you've stolen my thunder there. So, yeah, green technology metals. We haven't listed. Who are we? So we're essentially lithium in Canada. So we've literally just finished our roadshow. We had big excitement from all our instos. And in that respect, some of the presentations that I did, I'd walk into the room, was like, okay, green technology metals, lithium, Canada. And they say, right, that's enough. I don't need to hear any more. We'll invest. And they were literally throwing numbers over the table, which would take control of this business. So obviously we've had to pull those numbers back, but we easily pulled in 24 million. I think the book ended at 150 million. So in terms of the meeting we had this morning talking about liquidity, wow, it's out there. Just with what we saw with this listing, yeah, there was no funds that were not interested in investing in lithium. So who am I? I'm Luke Cox. This is my first time as a CEO. I'm fresh off the mines as a mine manager. So bear with me as I go through one of these presentations. Normally when I look out, I see a sea of fluoro, but this time it's a sea of suits and investors. So here we go. Good old disclaimer. I gave my presentation to the lawyers and then they just destroyed it with disclaimers and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, best in class. So having a good team, I mean, that's always critical to any job. In the chair, I've got John Young. I mean, he was there at the start of Pilbara Minerals. I've had many a conversation with John just about how Pilbara Minerals kicked off. He said he was out there in the Pilbara, kicking rocks, stumbled across this pegmatite. It wasn't that big, just stuck out of the ground. It was white. He goes, okay, this could be something here. And then, yeah, there we go. They started drilling, and they've proven up a significant resource. Right, so there we go. John, he's got a history in exploration and mining. Next on track, I've got Cameron Henry. So Cameron Henry, he's the boss of Primero. They're the premium provider of lithium processing plants in the world. So Cam's on the board, that's great. And then behind Cam, I've got Pat Murphy. So Pat Murphy, they invest in mining projects. So at the moment, they're doing quite well in their current commodities, but they need to digress. They're looking to get into lithium. So, yep, got Pat Murphy on the board, so there's my funding. So, projects. Okay, 3 projects, all sitting in Canada, Ontario, right on the border of the USA. So I think you've probably seen the news with the IMF. They're talking about a 6-fold increase in lithium. And then you got Biden. He wants to lock up critical minerals. Well, we're just sitting on the border there. We've got the minerals, and yeah, you can lock us up as much as you like. Exploration potential, well, we'll talk about that as I run through the projects that we've got on board. And yeah, it's all about decarbonisation, e-mobility, supplying lithium into lithium batteries. Now, one paper I just read recently was talking about, okay, well, we need to make these cars go faster and longer. So, you know, if you want to drive down to Margaret River or you want to drive up to Karratha, a lot of these cars probably won't make it at the moment. So they're investing a lot into the type of batteries we use. And they're really pushing towards, it's called an 8-1-1. And that's the breakup of minerals that go into that battery. But also what it is, it needs to be a hydroxide lithium sitting inside that battery. It cannot be a carbonate. It's got to be a hydroxide, otherwise the battery explodes. So when I got to the end of the paper, it did talk about, you know, well, what's best? Is it brine or is it hard rock lithium, which is spodumene? And they said, yeah, there's a shorter route to get to hydroxide with a spodumene than with a brine. So I thought, oh, that's great. We'll talk about that today. I'm really, yeah, fast tracking it. So I did start my life as an exploration geologist in Africa. Quickly came to Australia where it's a nicer climate and probably a nicer place to work. Worked my way up through production geology, technical services manager for companies like Evolution. And then, yeah, here I am today, mine manager, but CEO. Right, 3 projects. So the most developed is Seymour. We've already got a JORC resource on there at 4.8 million tonnes. Now you notice the grade there, 1.25. So generally, when you look at these lithium assets, they all sit around the 1%. You need to upgrade that to 6%. So it needs to be a several-fold increase. So that's where it's called an SC6. And that's a concentrate that then goes to these converters, and they convert it to a carbonate, and then they convert it to a hydroxide. And then that material goes down to these gigafactories. So I said, okay, I need to draw up a map. Where are all of these converters in America? And everyone said, oh yeah, they're in America, they're there. I said, well, we'll point to them. There is no converters in America. So how are we going to get our concentrate? I said, well, so there's a massive opening there for someone to create a converter. So yeah, lo and behold, I had a chat to Cam Henry. He builds converters. So yeah, certainly watch this space. But back onto the Seymour asset, 4.8 million tonnes. I said, Cam, how much do I need to get before we get finance for Seymour? He goes, you need about 10 million tonnes. In these concentrators, they take about 1 million tonnes through the front end, and they concentrate down. So you need about 10 years worth of dirt. So yes, that's my first job. We're going to prove up Seymour. So we've raised the cash, 24 million. That's going to go into the ground. I need to do it as quickly as possible. So I said, right, spoke to my friends. I said, right, who wants to go to Canada? And they all raised their hands. I said, one issue is you're not coming back. They said, are you sure? I said, COVID, you can't come back to WA. Okay, so a few hands went down and a few hands stayed up. And then one of my good friends, Matt, he does resource drill outs for people like Rio, FMG. He kept his hand up. Anyway, we shipped him off to Thunder Bay. He's there right now. He's just set himself up at a house. He's speaking to the drillers, and he's out to the first site, and we're going to start drilling at the end of the month or early November. So all we need to do is get Seymour to 10 million tonnes, and then we'll move on to Root and Weezer. So we talked about John Young, Cam, myself, Pat Murphy, Rob Longley. So I've worked with Rob for many years. He's the MD of Ardedan. So they were the original owners of the assets. So we spoke to Rob a long time ago. He said, look, if you're going to pivot to gold, we'll take the lithium and we'll fund, well, obviously, when we take these assets, we'll give you some cash and you can fund your gold and we'll take the lithium. He agreed to that, and that's where we are today. So, yep, talked about AMCI, Primero, Mining Plus as we move into development. ESG. All right, so when I first arrived to the conference, a young fella came up to me, he goes, green technology metals, what makes you so green? This is mining. I sort of thought about that and I thought, yeah, you're probably right. So I had a hard think. Well, one thing in Canada, they've got a lot of water and they've got a lot of hydropower. Now, all of our assets sit within reach of a hydro plant. So if you can imagine trying to build a plant in WA, the power costs are really high. In Ontario, we're on about 4 cents per kilowatt hour. That's almost 8 times lower than what you're going to get in WA. And also, it's a green tick. So when you're going for ESG, green tick, hydropower to your processing plant. We're already in negotiations with the First Nations. We've got an early exploration agreement with Seymour, Root, and we're working on Weezer right now. We actually spoke to the First Nations yesterday. So it's all going gangbusters at the moment. All right, location. So we had a good hard think about this. All right, end of the day, we're going to be supplying lithium concentrate into the USA. That's our plan. But look, Seymour, there's actually a spur line on the southern end of our tenement there. So if we did need to manoeuvre, we could go west out to Asia or go east out to Europe. But our plan is to go south into the USA. Fast tracking. So we haven't even listed, but I've already got guys on the ground. I've got geo teams at Root, Seymour. We're already cutting and trenching the Pegmatites. We've already flown LiDAR. I've already done the ortho mosaics. As of last night, we've increased our position, our land position, 4-fold, and we're going to increase it by 10-fold, just based on those LiDAR and ortho mosaics, which is essentially aerial photography. Probably what you don't know is spodumene is a very hard mineral. It doesn't weather very well, and it sticks out of the ground. So when we flew these ortho mosaics, the aerial photography, we picked up a lot of ground and a lot of pegmatites. We've also done preliminary pit optimizations at Seymour and Root, just to give us an idea of where these pits are going to go and their dimensions. Desktop studies are done by Primero for processing. It's all looking very good. We've got very coarse spodumene crystals, and also we've got the RAL infrastructure on how we're going to get it out of Canada and into America. So what happened? 2016, Arden were going gangbusters, lithium price was going through the roof, and they were doing really well. They were proving up a resource at Seymour. Come 2018, lithium price crashed. They're like, well, what do we do now? They looked in their back pocket and they had all the gold assets. So they quickly pivoted to gold. And that's when we came in and said, look, can we have a look at these assets? Now, to give you an indication of exploration upside, that last hole is 40 metres at 2.4. Those bigger discs, as you go down that hole, are 5% lithium. So that's high grade, that's a world-class hit. And that was the last drill hole they did before the lithium price crashed. Right, so network. Arden went in, they took a bulk sample from the top of these pegmatites that stick out, they're ridges, you can see them from space, they almost illuminate on your photography. Anyway, they took the raw material, they concentrated it to 7%. They then took that concentrate and converted that to a carbonate, and then Primero did a desktop study. And one thing they did say when they looked at the study was, wow, this is coarse spodumene. So when you've got coarse spodumene, it means the processing cost comes down because you're doing straight dense media separation. That's your lowest cost of separation for lithium. Right, onto the projects. Seymour, our most developed, 4.8, we've already talked about that. We've done we've used micromine and we did implicit modelling. We believe there's 22 to 26 million tonnes, sitting around that 1 to 1.5% lithium. It's got a strike length of 7 kilometres, one we've seen for the ortho mosaics. We've got the rail siding to the south. Yeah, this one's going to be a bit of a ripper. So, green dots to the north. These are areas that we're going to go back and start drilling out. All those red dots are all the additional pegmatites that we've picked up. Now, just down one side, that's 8 kilometres of strike of pegmatite coming down on Seymour. So obviously we've got guys out there now, they're mapping that. What you do, you'll see the pegmatite pop out of a very thin cover of glacial till. So when the glaciers retreated 20 or 30,000 years ago, they left a bed of material about 1 metre to 1.5 metres. And what it does, it actually disguises what's under the ground, just below the surface like a carpet. So we've got the guys going over there and connecting these pegmatites up. Second asset, Root. There was a historical resource on there because it is historical from, I think, 1956. We can't use that, so we're going to have to go back in and re-drill. That's not an issue, so we did implicit modelling again. Got 20 to 24 million tonnes. One thing Arden did do, they drilled down the centre of one of the pegmatites just to get an idea of grade continuity. They got 67 metres at 1.7. Now that's pretty good. This area is actually a painted claim, which is actually a mining claim. And then we've got Morrison just over to the east. So once again, loads of pegmatites all over the show. Weezer, we spoke to the First Nations not long ago, and yeah, we're going into an early exploration agreement with them, and we'll be accessing that area as well. So what we're going to do, $24 million. We're building our team over there. They're not flying back. They're going to prove up 40 million tonnes, and then we move to the next step. One thing we are doing, as of today, my ESG manager is flying over on the 9th, and she'll be starting the approvals process. So that'll be baseline studies for all of our deposits. So I don't want to get to 2 years' time and go, right, we've got 40 million tonnes, then we have to do 2 years' worth of baseline. So we'll get those done as well. So pretty much that's it. We're cashed up now. We're ready to go. And probably one last little bit of information. Matt, who's now moved into Thunder Bay on Lake Superior, his neighbour is the mayor of Thunder Bay, and they've already had a beer and started talking about hydroxide plants in Thunder Bay. So it's moving pretty quickly. All right, thank you very much. It's been great talking to you, and watch this space.